Let me just add her in. Look for her. There we go. Let's invite her. We are also live on YouTube. Hello. All right. We are going to be doing an extension of our podcast that we did together, which is very exciting. Our podcast was all around healing through self-love, being able to come to wholeness with yourself. So I'm super excited. I had so many people message me in regards to that podcast episode and how much they loved it. Let me just make sure that I am clicking invite. Hello. While we wait for Laura to join, hopefully the invite works. This has happened to me before where I've gone live and it hasn't worked. So let's just wait. Let's just see. Maybe I'll have to, there we go, accept. All right, let's see if this works. There we go. Amazing. Hello. Hello, my love. Good morning to you.
Yes. Good morning here. What time is it where you are? Late?
It is 7 p.m. now.
Okay. Amazing.
Not too bad. I was just sharing whilst we get started, Laura and I did an incredible podcast episode on my podcast, the Jessica Pinili podcast. It is episode 299. So we're really just going to go into an extension of that because it's definitely a podcast episode that I have gotten so many DMs about. Just people loved it, resonated with it, loved the points that Laura brought to the conversation. And I guess to kind of prime this, Laura, let's speak about what self-love means. What does that actually mean in this? Because I know that in the work that we do, this can be such an overused term or a term that people don't really know what it actually means. So what does it mean for you?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like it's become so oversaturated now. It's one of those words that has been used time and time again. It's almost lost its meaning. Or people kind of like think about it and think, I don't know, just it feels like it's lost all context. And I think self-love is more than the surface level stuff. So it's more than like the bubble baths, the face masks and things like that. It's the real core foundation. Self-love is the absolute foundation of everything. So it's basically being able to be there for yourself, have compassion for yourself, even when you make mistakes, even when things go wrong, when people are, maybe not agreeing with you. It's about owning yourself and knowing that you are enough regardless of whatever is going on around you, and just really stepping into like your own truth, your own power. Whenever you're having a bad day, it's okay, I can get through this, rather than berating yourself or sabotaging yourself. It's just really being your own best friend and treating yourself with the kindness that you give to other people. So yeah, I think self-love is just really the thing that we all need to adopt, but it's a thing that doesn't almost need to be gained. I think it's our birthright, and it's about rediscovering it.
Oh, I like that. Let's go into that because I feel that's such a great point. I feel that in this day and age, a lot of people believe that it's something they need to gain, they need to earn. Why?
Yeah, I think social conditioning, I think there's so much on that toxic productivity of not doing enough in our fast-paced world. Like, I can only love myself, or I can only give myself this nice thing if I have done X. So for example, I can only rest if I've got in my 10K steps today. And that's loving yourself with condition. And self-love is about loving yourself unconditionally, regardless of how many steps you've done, regardless of the things that you've achieved or not achieved, or the amount of money that you make. It's about you are just enough simply by existing. That is your birthright.
I love that. I think that's so beautiful, and it's true, right? It is our birthright to be in a position where we can love ourselves. We have the choice to love ourselves. And I think, and I would love to hear your insight on this, I think that sometimes we tell ourselves that we don't have the right to love ourselves. And yes, it's conditional, but also on that, we see this perception, like with social media and things happening in the world, that we can only love ourselves if we achieve something or if we're doing something. And so if we're at that point, and if someone is watching, whether you're here live with us or whether you're watching the replay, where do we start to discover if that's our thinking?
Yeah, I think comparison comes in hugely with that. It's like you might be thinking like you want to, I don't know, treat yourself to something nice, and then all of a sudden you're scrolling through Instagram and you see someone with like this insane like achievement, you know, that they've earned so much in their business, or they've just bought a new car or something like that, and you're like, actually, I don't deserve to love myself or give myself this nice thing because I have not achieved the kind of thing that they've achieved. And so then they go into that almost like self-destruction mode of, well, it's almost like going and doing the opposite of loving yourself by really just berating and being unkind to yourself. And I think you've got to be really careful about what you see and what you consume, and that is another act of self-love. It's about not just, you know, what you're putting inside your body in terms of nutrition. It's like the things you're consuming, media, news, people, like energy of other people is so magnetic. Like you really want to make sure that you surround yourself with people that inspire you, uplift you, support you, cheer you on, rather than the people that drain you. And we do outgrow people, and that's okay. It doesn't need to be like, oh, I no longer like this person no longer likes me, and it doesn't need to be bitter. It's just like, okay, well, we're going different ways. We are growing and evolving in different ways, and that's okay. And it's just about being at peace. And I think when you can be at peace with yourself, that's when your nervous system starts to feel regulated. And that's when it feels easier to be more compassionate to yourself. So it's kind of a bit of a domino effect on all of the sort of personal development work that you might come across. But underneath all of that is that self-love.
And I think being able to consciously make the decision towards that, right? Because I think that sometimes when we have conversations around self-love, when we have conversations around self-trust, doing things, personal growth, personal development, one of the biggest things I see in the work that we do, and maybe you see this as well, is the lack of making a decision to change and to choose yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And you'll know this very well as well with that subconscious. It's like the brain is always going to choose the path of least resistance. So if it's coming up against change, it will automatically want to default back to familiarity. I don't want to do these things because it feels unsafe for me. So it will revert back. And it's generally the things that, you know, you've either been conditioned to believe by society, peers, teachers, parents, whoever, or like the media, and like, I can only do this thing if I have completed X, and you'll revert back to that rather than like trusting your own intuition. I think we all struggle with that so much because we believe other people are right, and we try and go off what other people might think, or other people's approval, or that external validation. And when you don't listen to your own intuition, that's when you're almost not living your own life. You're living life by other people's means. And that's when you fall out of who you really are, who you want to be, what truly matters to you. And then, you know, that's when you almost lose yourself, and self-love becomes something so far away that it feels impossible to reach. So you don't even strive to make the decision to go towards it because it feels too difficult. But it's just about taking that one step and consistently going and taking that one step every day, because you're not going to overhaul your life overnight. And I just want to say here, self-love is not a destination. It is a continuous choice that you make for yourself every single day. It's not, I love myself and you don't. It's, I continuously choose to love myself regardless.
And that's the biggest thing, right? Is making that choice and decision that no matter what is happening, you are choosing to love yourself. You are choosing to show up in a form of self-love. And kind of touching on what you said before, self-love most of the time is doing the nitty-gritty, the unglamorous, the unsexy work that doesn't feel good. And like you mentioned at the start, we like to glamorize self-love in the sense of, okay, yeah, let's have a bath, or maybe pour a glass of wine, or facial, or maybe I'll do some online shopping and I'll feel really good about myself. All of those are dopamine hits to keep you in the same cycles, to keep you in the same loops, to keep you in familiar patterns and not actually addressing what's happening. And so a form of self-love isn't just showing up and saying you love yourself. It is the commitment to do the work of what you are resisting, because what you are resisting, and for everyone watching live, anyone watching the replay, what is coming up when Laura and I are speaking is probably an indication of what you're resisting and what requires your time, your energy, and effort to actually lean into that self-love.
Yeah, self-love is also sitting with yourself through that discomfort. You really have to sit with yourself and hold your own hand through the storm, sit in the mud with yourself and really just be there. And it's uncomfortable and it can be painful and emotional, but that's exactly what you need to do to get through to the other side. And I think once you learn to do that, you'll start to begin to trust yourself more as well, because you are truly listening to what has been suppressed for so many years. You either make the choice to continue to keep suppressing it and live feeling unfulfilled, or you choose to sit through that discomfort for that short period of time and live the rest of your life feeling that fulfillment, feeling that joy, feeling that excitement, because you know in your heart what you want and what you don't want. And when you live aligned with your own values, that's when true magic begins to happen, because you stop relying on others to complete you and recognize, I'm already whole and that's enough. And then the rest of your life, honestly, can just be magic. And it's not like, like this overnight kind of fix. It's like, again, that consistent and continuous choice of, I'm going to put myself first. I'm going to put myself first. And recognizing that it's not selfish. It's vital.
Absolutely. I love that point. Recognizing it's not selfish, it's vital. It's vital for your progression. It's vital for you to work towards your long-term vision and the things that you want to achieve, and be able to experience life to its fullest and what you perceive as the fullest. And when here's a question: when we find ourselves stuck in loops of trying to love ourselves but kind of sabotaging that, where shall we begin to get ourselves out of that?
I always love the modality of journaling. Write down your thoughts, brain dump. What is going on inside yourself at a cellular level? Because if you aren't able to express that and your emotions, it's going to remain blocked. And sometimes we can't verbalize it. Sometimes we can't talk to someone about it, either because we can't articulate it and it's not making sense, or we feel shame. Whereas if you're writing it down, it's only you reading it, but it's getting it out. It's a physical release. And even when it's on paper, it doesn't need to make sense. But when you read it back, you'll see that actually, maybe it's not as bad as I thought it was. And you'll start to understand your own thought process and gain so much more self-awareness, so that in your everyday, when you're having the thoughts, you can start to not analyze, not judge, but just notice when they're coming in and begin to slowly start reframing them. Like, I'm having that thought again that I'm not enough. Well, actually, what is the truth behind that? Do I have any evidence to back it up? And does it serve me right now? No. Okay, well, can I let that go and choose something different? Because that's the thing. We've always got a choice, no matter how hard it feels. So it's about what you're choosing and recognizing that thought process. But journaling is the most simple yet powerful tool to start with, for sure.
Something as an extension from that, journaling. One thing that I share with my clients to get them started, especially if you feel like you're watching and maybe you have resistance or maybe you don't know where to start, what I get them to do is a mirror question. So make whatever the statement is in your mind. Maybe it is, I don't love myself, or I don't know how to love myself, or I am struggling with insert thing. The mirror question part is after the statement, flip it and ask why. So if you put the statement as, I don't know how to love myself, ask yourself, why don't I know how to love myself? And this just creates a way, just like Laura says, it creates really this pathway to witnessing yourself and giving yourself space. It is so simple, yet I think it's one of those things that are so simple that people are like, oh, I don't need to do that, or it's not really going to help me, or I've tried it before, right? And I get it. And this is a thing with this work, this personal growth work is honestly the most simplified modalities and things I've seen, they are the most effective. And people, and I'm sure you've seen it time and time again, and people don't want to do them because we put in our head, too easy, too easy, too easy. Give me something harder, or give me something new, or what's another way to look at it? And at the basis of it all, it's not looking for new things, or else you're always going to be looking for that shiny object all the time. It's doing the things that work and doing them in a way that works for you. If you don't have time to write or can't be bothered, voice message yourself. That's another great way to be able to tap into that. And I think that when it comes to, I just want to point out the witnessing yourself part, it gives you the space to really understand, who am I and what am I doing right now? And in regards to this topic, we're speaking about self-love. Why isn't what I'm doing and who I'm being actually reflecting loving myself?
Yeah, it's like, what action can I take right now? What's one small step I can take right now? And I always like to say it's just that 1% every single day that adds up to 365% over the year. Whereas if you take 0% every day, you get nowhere. But 1% every day adds up so much. And it is those little things. And I think the people that will say, like, oh, journaling, I've tried it before, like it doesn't work, and all of these things. Actually, there's slight resistance there, but two, the bigger one that people don't want to hear is denial. There's some denial going on there of, I'm not going to do this thing, because they don't actually believe something needs to change, or they're too scared to make the change. But then I would sit with that. Why is that coming up for you? But also, like, just taking it step by step and taking it small. But I do believe that if you're resisting those simple things, there's a reason why. And I think it's about uncovering what those blockages are and then working from there. And that's the bit that might not be easy, but that's the bit that you need to work through first to get through that barrier, to get to the place where you want to be. And also, it's like, if you don't know what self-love is, or you don't know how to love yourself, think to yourself, ask yourself the question, what do I want it to look like? What do I want it to feel like? If you can tap into that, start introducing little bits of that as your daily kind of like actions or daily rituals, and bring it in and incorporate into your life daily, slowly, like drip feed yourself in a way that feels nourishing but not overwhelming.
I want to highlight the point you said about resistance. I think that's important. Is your resistance is telling you something, and you said there's probably an element of denial sometimes when we're not leaning into that. And you know, if you feel like you have resistance, or you feel like you're coming up a blank, again, that's really like your ego trying to make up an excuse not to dive in deeper. Your brain is just trying to protect yourself. So that's something I say to myself. I'm quite literally wired to protect myself. That's what's happening. But instead of trying to come up with an answer, what I want you to instead focus on is just saying, what would I feel right now? What do I feel right now with this resistance? Start with a feeling. What do I feel? Annoyed? Frustrated? There is a feeling that is happening. And even if you can't tap into that, you need to sit with that, because that is going to help you unblock so much beyond the resistance part and get you, again, this is all about the work that we're talking about, the true self-love, is being able to see yourself, come home to yourself, understand yourself. And understanding yourself means that you need to understand what you're feeling, connect those feelings to those thoughts, and allow yourself to explain it. But I agree, if you feel like you're in this place where specifically talking about the journaling, this can be applied to any modality, where it's like, I've tried that before and I've done that and it's not working, it's not for me. What are you avoiding? Or what have you actually tried? Because often what I see is, there's a lot in women that I work with, is often it's not that you've tried it, you've either just tried one way and you've tried to do it over and over again. And again, this can be applied to all modalities. Or you have never tried a different way. When we don't try something differently, we don't know it's ever going to work. We're never going to create new neural pathways to actually create a different state of being. And that's the whole goal of this. Getting into a true state of self-love where we feel peace, where we feel connected with ourselves, requires us to act differently to what we're doing right now, which requires us to actually witness ourselves differently and try things differently. So if you're watching and maybe you're listening to some of this and you're thinking, oh yeah, I've tried that, and like, I know all of this, but you're still in the same position, or you're still feeling the same, upon reflection, try something different. Try a different way of being. Try sitting with what you're feeling, because doing the superficial things, or the dopamine hits, which can include, maybe doing, let's say you go to a yoga class but with no intention. Let's say that you save a bunch of motivational reels or TikToks, you never go back to them, or you never actually action what they're saying. Let's say you're addicted to podcasts during the week. How much are you actually picking up and actioning from that, right? If it's a personal development, personal growth, business, life podcast. These are the things that I call dopamine hits. They make us feel, and even speaking about your plans to someone, maybe you say to someone, I'm going to quit my job soon and I'm going to go all in with my business. And you've been saying that for the past 2 years. This is exactly a form of what I would say of not loving yourself to your fullest. And it can be really confronting to hear that, but it truly, you're not showing up for yourself in the way that you know that you can. And when you don't show up for yourself in the way that you know you can, you're repeatedly telling yourself, okay, I'm not worthy of the love that I want to give. That's what you're reflecting back. Plus, we brought this up earlier, but you break the trust you have for yourself. Self-trust equals being able to back yourself. If you cannot back yourself in life, you don't have a foundation for the things you do. And so that's why coming in, like bringing this section together nicely, is putting yourself in a position with intention, whether it's journaling, any modality, to give yourself the space to witness yourself in ways that you never have before, because that's what's going to create the change. If you sit down and let's say you have been answering the same journal prompt for the past year and you keep getting the same answers, or you're just like, I'm doing some journaling, I'm connecting, you're probably not. Switch it up. Do something more confronting, right? Do something that's different. Ask yourself different questions. What is, the difference between a conscious and subconscious thought, right, is your subconscious are automatic. They're your patterns. The conscious is deliberate. You have to think about it. And so what is happening in your day that is automatic, that is a pattern? What do you think every time you look at your bank account? What do you think about every time a bill's going out? What do you think about every time you are sitting in a room of people at your work? Or what do you think about every time you see someone on social media that maybe has something you want? That's where you start. Write down those thoughts if you haven't done this before, because then that it gives you the space to explore exactly where you're not loving yourself to your full potential.
Yeah, you made so many good points there. And I think just like touching on one of the things that you said about intention, I think if you're not coming from a place of intention, you're going to continue to just keep falling down, because if you don't truly want something, it just has no meaning, it has no context. So it's like, if you want to learn to love yourself, why do you want to? What is the reason for that? Why is that important to you? And then just touching on what you said about emotions as well, it's like sitting with your emotions, but also validating your own emotions and feelings, because all of your emotions are valid. And people might tell you you can only feel sad or you can only feel happy. No, you can feel an entire spectrum of emotions all at once. And whatever you feel is how you feel, and that's valid. So never let anyone tell you how you should and shouldn't feel. Just sit with yourself and honor those feelings. And then something that you said there about wanting to make some changes, but you've tried it before and it's not working, but you keep trying the same thing, or you've tried it once and you think like the same thing, like it's not going to work on any kind of level, or you need to do it in a different way. And just an example is like if you go into a store and you try on a pair of jeans and they don't fit and like they're a certain size, but then you're like, you will never go into any other kind of store because you think all of the jeans will never fit you, when actually the same size in another store might actually fit you, because nothing is actually the same. So it's about trying and experimenting with different ways and finding the way that suits and fits you. And working like that, because what works for one person might not work for you, and that's okay. None is right or wrong. It's just about what works for one person and what works for another. So get creative, like experiment. Don't berate yourself if something isn't working. That's an act of self-love too. It's like, just try all these different things and come from a place of intention, of love, and have fun. Like, don't be so hard on yourself. Don't be so serious. Like, just take everything with a pinch of salt, enjoy life.
I think that's such a good point. Have fun. What's the point in life if it's not fun? I always say that. I think, like, above all, if you aren't having fun in all areas of your life, and this doesn't disregard that we're humans still having a human experience, we experience law of polarity. Of course, there are going to be times where we are sad, we are angry, life sucks, life is happening. Of course, that's the polarity of it. But if your point of attraction and your main experience of life isn't fun, I really need you to get honest with yourself. What's the point of going the way you're going, making the decisions, choosing what you're doing if you're not having fun? Because that's living life to its fullest. And fun doesn't need to make sense. Fun doesn't need to make sense to your parents or your partner or your siblings, your friends. It doesn't need to make sense to anyone. But it must be fun and it must feel inspiring. And I think when you merge those two together, you find this beautiful blend of what self-love really looks like for you.
Yeah, get curious. Come from it at a place of loving curiosity. Get curious. Be more like childlike and just experiment. Have an open mind and never see things as right or wrong, just as a lesson that you can learn from. Like, I don't believe in failure. I think so much comes from the mistakes that we make. And that's another element of self-love is if you make a mistake, don't berate yourself. Just ask yourself, what can I learn from this and how can I grow from it? How can I adapt my life in a better way now? Because there's so much room for expansion and growth that comes from the things that go wrong. And if we didn't do things wrong, we'd just be plateaued for life, and that would be so boring. So actually see your shortcomings and any kind of mistakes that you make as a good thing. Like, it's a positive thing because you get to learn and grow so much from it. So yeah, I think that's just a really beautiful way of kind of like wrapping this up is like self-love is just the core of everything, and everything is interlinked. So once you can get that like feeling good for you, everything else will feel so much easier to start climbing.
Absolutely. I think this was such a beautiful live and such a great extension of our podcast episode that Laura and I did on the Jessica Pinili podcast, episode 299. If you love this, trust me, you will love that episode. And I think in 2025, I'm going to have to get Laura back on for a part 2. I've already said that to her because it's so fun to speak about these topics and to bring awareness, but to also bring some realism, right? Because, social media can make it sound airy fairy and easy, and like we've said, it's most of the time it's this unglamorous, unsexy work about diving deep and being honest, and it can be confronting, and we're not sitting here saying just do this and it's got to be so hard and it's going to be changed. No, we're saying it takes time. Be patient with yourself. And I just want to reiterate what Laura said. Everything is feedback, whether you perceive it as positive, whether you perceive it as negative. It is just giving you feedback on who you are, and then you take that, you witness yourself, and then you transmute that into who you want to become. So thank you so much, Laura, for your time. What is one thing that you are doing daily or weekly that is an act of self-love?
Honoring my own needs and my own energy.
Yeah.
Tapping into that every single day. It's like I just don't believe in like the hustling. It's like I just honor my own energy and move with flow. So it's tapping more into that feminine energy, and getting the balance between that masculine and feminine. But yeah, really honoring my own needs, my own energy before I commit to anything, or just really reflecting on how I feel.
Absolutely. Amen to that. I love that. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone that joined us live, anyone that is watching the replay as well. I appreciate you all. Thank you so much, Laura.
Thank you so much. Have an amazing evening.
Have a great day, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye, my love.
All right. Bye. Bye.